In this theory tutorial, I want to take a look at the dominant 7th chord found in music, and this is also part of the Grade 4 Trinity College theory syllabus. So let's first define what is the dominant or the dominant chord of a scale. Remember, the dominant chord is the triad built on the 5th degree of the scale. So if I have C major, E, F, G, A, B, C, so there I've got the C major scale, then the dominant triad is built on the 5th degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it's on G. Using G as root note, we get G, 3rd, B, and 5th, D. Remember, we use the 1st, 3rd, and 5th degree. The roots of that degree, or the roots for the degree, G, then B, the third degree, and then 5th, which is D. Now, if we then go and we add the 7th, an interval of a 7th on top of the 5th, on the 5th degree on that triad, we are going to get to the dominant 7th. So then the chord will look like this: G, B, D, and then F, the 7th degree that is added to that. And we also have to remember that when we build chords and we have to label them, we can either use Roman numerology or we can use our chord symbols. So if I just build the tonic triad as well on both sides like so, and let's build the 4th as well. So this is all in C major. There I've built the triad on the 4th as well. So I've built the subdominant triad as well. Then I'm going to label it as follows. So because it's a major, we're going to use uppercase Roman numerals. So it's going to be 1, 4, 5, 7, because we've added the 7th, and then 1 again at the top. For the chord symbols, we're going to have C, F, G 7th, and then C. Very important to add that 7th. If we didn't have a 7th, only a standard dominant chord, then it would have looked like that, and then we would have only written the G or 5. In a minor key, let's take A minor for example. We have the scale A, B, C, D, E, F, and then remembering that we use harmonic modes, G sharp followed by A. So we have that G sharp because it's the raised 7th in a harmonic scale. If I build the tonic on A minor, it would be A, C, E. If I build the 4th, it would be D followed by F sharp. Why F sharp? Because we need to remember that in minor scales we will have the F sharp. The triad on the 4th degree will be major. If we omit the F sharp, it will not be major, or it would sound minor. It needs to be major, so the 3rd degree needs to be raised. Then we have our 5th, the 5th degree. If we build the dominant, it would be E, remembering it's G sharp, the raised 7th, and B. Very, very important. The G sharp will still apply here because it is the raised 7th. Here we have the F sharp because it needs to be a major. The 4th degree, or the triad on the 4th degree, the subdominant, will be major as well. So we need to then make sure that we have the interval of a major 3rd between the root note, which is D, and the 3rd, which is F sharp. Finally, let's just label the tonic again at the top, ACE. Now, labeling with Roman numerology, it would be lowercase I, 4, uppercase 5, and followed by lowercase I or lowercase 1 again. And then for our chord symbols, we will have A minor, we will have D, we will have E, and finally we will have A minor again. Now, if we then go ahead and we rewrite the dominant chord as a dominant seventh, we will add the seventh degree. So we're going to add the seventh on top of this fifth here. So we're going to add that D there. So it would be E followed by G sharp, B, and D. So there we have the dominant seventh chord of A minor. So now labeling the Roman numerology will stay the same, but now we will add the 5 there, 5, 7. And for the chord symbols, it will stay the same, but we are going to add the 7th as shown like so. So the fascinating thing about the dominant 7th chord is that it feels as though it is magnetically attracted to the tonic chord. So when we have this dominant 7th degree, we will notice that we have the 7th degree here, the G sharp. And this note here wants to resolve to the tonic, which will be A. So, and this is what makes the chord so strong and interesting to use. If we write a cadential progression, so let's write the dominant 7th in A minor, which will be E, B, D, and then followed by G sharp. So there I've put the G sharp at the top, and this G sharp will want to resolve to the tonic, and the G sharp we know is the raised 7th degree, so this one will want to resolve to the tonic, which is A. So we will want to then let this one move in the music to A, and then the D would want to move to C. The B would want to move to A, and finally the E would also want to move to A. And we can see here then that we don't have any parallels. We don't want to write parallels when we do chord progression or 4-part chord progression. Here we have an outward movement, and here we have an interval of a fifth going to an octave, which is perfectly acceptable in a case like this. So let's have a look at just another example. Let's use F sharp minor, and let's label the triads. Let's label the triads and dominant 7th chords with Roman numerals below the stave and then chord symbols above to show the chord progression. So I'm literally just going to write the progression, but first, because we are working in F sharp minor, we need to remember F sharp minor will have 3 accidentals. It will have the F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp because it shares with a major. So we will then go and say, okay, let's write the following progression. I'm going to write F sharp, A, C sharp, and then I'm going to write, let's say, B, D, F sharp, which is the 4th, and if we look closely between B and D, we don't have a major third interval, so we just need to remember to fix and make sure that we write the D sharp to make that interval a major third. And then finally we are going to write, let's say, the tonic, let's say the dominant, so it's C sharp, and then remembering that the raised 7th degree in this scale will be E sharp, and E sharp is F, but we're not writing F, we are going to write E sharp. So we're going to use that enharmonic spelling. So instead of writing F, we will be writing E sharp, and then followed by G. So we're going to have again C, followed by E sharp, and then G. And then let's, for argument's sake, write the dominant 7th after this. So first the dominant, then the dominant 7th. So it's going to be C sharp, E sharp, then G sharp, followed by B. So there we have our dominant 7th. And then finally we will write, let's write the tonic again. So we are going to finish off by writing the tonic F sharp, A, C sharp. And notice when I speak about the keys, I'm not saying just F, A, C. I'm saying the accidentals with it because it helps us to remember that we need to add those accidentals and check that the accidentals are correctly in this particular key, especially with keys that uses a lot of accidentals. So then this part will sound like this. So first the tonic, subdominant, followed by the dominant, dominant seventh, and then the tonic again. Labeling them, they will look like this. So we have 1, 4, 5, 5, 7, followed by 1. And then the chord symbols will read F sharp minor, B, the root note is B, fourth degree is B, followed by C sharp, the root note is not C, it's C sharp. Notice the accidentals of the key signature, followed by C sharp seventh, just with the added seventh interval, and then finally we have F sharp minor again. So one thing we should also notice about the dominant seventh chord is that there is always an interval of a diminished fifth that is within each dominant seventh chord, which is written in root position. So let's quickly have a look at just writing out the dominant seventh in root position, and I'm just going to use a easy key signature just to help understand better. So let's write the dominant seventh in C major. That would be G, B, D, and F. And if we have a close look, that there's always a diminished fifth within every dominant, and that is usually, if we take the notes, we will see that it is always the third interval and the seventh interval. So if I then remove the root note and the fifth, then I'm stuck with the third and the seventh left, and this then is the diminished fifth. So in order for it to be just an interval of a perfect fifth, it would have been B to F sharp, but now we have B to F, so that means that we are stuck with a diminished fifth. And just like I explained earlier, that the dominant seventh chord has a tendency to want to resolve to the tonic. This is why. So if we have a look, that this wants to resolve to, this is B, the seventh degree, so it wants to resolve to the C, which is the tonic, the seventh degree to the tonic, and then this one here would want to then resolve downward to the third degree, E. So very important thing to remember, that to resolve the dominant seventh to the tonic as smoothly as possible, the leading note, or the seventh degree, in this case B, usually rises in the same part to the tonic, and then the seventh in the dominant seventh, the seventh usually falls in the same part to the third of the tonic, which is E. Let's check out G major. So we know that G major, we're going to have a key signature. Our key signature for G major will be F sharp. And we have the dominant triad of G major will start on the fifth, so it's going to be D, followed by F sharp and A. So there is our dominant. If we want to make it a dominant seventh, we're going to add the seventh degree there, so it's going to be C. So we're going to have D, F sharp, A, C. And then remembering that the diminished in root position will be the third and the seventh. So there we have the diminished fifth. And if we resolve it, remember F sharp wants to resolve to G upward, and the C wants to resolve down to the third of the scale, which in this case will be B. The dominant seventh degree can also be written as a compound interval. So let's quickly have a look just to recap what a compound interval is. So a compound interval is an interval that is larger than an octave. So we can actually write the dominant seventh chord as a compound interval. Let's use C major again. So we're going to use G. So the diminished fifth will be the B and the F. So the third and the 7th interval of the dominant 7th chord. So this will be the diminished 5th. But this is not compound because the interval is still smaller than an octave. But if we want to write it as a compound interval, then we are going to do the following. We're going to add the 5th on top of that. So in this case, taking the B all the way down 1 octave. So now we have an octave from B to B, followed by the diminished 5th interval. And here is what we call a compound diminished 5th. And how does it look when this resolves? So it's going to work exactly the same. Remembering that if the leading tone in C major is B, it's still going to resolve upward to C, while the 7th will resolve downwards to the 3rd degree of C major, E. So it's going to sound a lot more open and a lot more different, but it is exactly the same thing. Then why on earth do we need to know what the difference is between the normal diminished 5th that we found in the dominant 7th and the compound? Because when we start writing it in 4-part harmony, it is very important to know and recognize that diminished 5th, in order to resolve it correctly so that the music actually sounds smoothly. That is why. That is the most important thing to remember. So say, for example, we have the following. Let's use G minor. So G minor, we know, have 2 accidentals, B flat and E flat. So let's write out the dominant 7th of G minor. We know that the dominant will be D, so we're going to start on D, writing out the D. So that's our bass note. We are going to copy that note 1 octave higher, and then finally we are left with the F sharp and the C, and remembering that the F sharp and the C will then make up the diminished 5th. So then if we write the diminished 5th in as a compound diminished 5th, we will first then write the F sharp, so then if we want to complete the voicing and write that diminished 5th as a compound diminished 5th, we are going to write it as so. So we're still going to have a D, but then we're going to write the F sharp. We're still going to have that D that we copied there, and finally we're going to have the C. Now we can see that from this F sharp up to this F sharp we have an octave, and then we have the added diminished 5th on top of that. Resolving this, then resolving the voices to the tonic, it's going to work like this. So remembering that the D is the 5th, the root note, that will go to the tonic, and the tonic is G. So that's going to be easy. We're just going to write the G. The 7th degree of G minor is F sharp, and that resolves to G. We know this is this note here, and that's going to resolve upward to G. And then finally we have D and C left. We know that the C is the other part of the diminished 5th within the dominant 7th, and that's going to resolve downward to B. But before we write that, we're first going to copy this D exactly over as it is, and then we're going to write the B. Why do we copy the D over? Remember, the tonic of G minor is G, B, D, and we had G and G, the 7th, the leading tone resolving upward to the tonic, and the dominant going down to the tonic as well. And then we have D because we don't have a D yet, and we know that the other part, the 7th, that resolves to the 3rd degree, is C that resolves to B. So we are going to have to copy that D in order to make up for parts of the voicing. And that is how we resolve the dominant 7th, by focusing on the diminished 5th. That is very, very important. Let's do one final example. Let's take B flat major. So there we have B flat major. So the relative major of G minor will be B flat major. So let's use the relative major to show. So First of all, the dominant in B flat major will be F. So we're going to start with our root first on F. And the dominant seventh is built on F, A, C, and E. So we can't just write F, A, C, and E. So we're going to expand the chord to give each voice or each part the correct voice. So in this case, we're going to say F. And then let's use C. And finally, we're going to use A and E. So now we have this fifth and this fifth here. But very important, let's have a look. The diminished fifth is here, A to E flat. Here we have a perfect fifth, F to C. So here the resolution will take place. So we're first going to say, okay, let's start from the bottom going up. So this is F, the dominant. That's going to resolve to B flat. That's easy. So we write that one in. We know that C here is then going to resolve to B because we are going to double our tonic. So we are going to write B flat. And finally, we know that the leading tone A will resolve up to the tonic, B flat, and that the seventh degree will resolve downward to the third degree, which is E flat to D. And there now we have a smooth motion. If we resolved this in any other way, we would have had parallel fifths. And we don't want parallel fifths because then the music doesn't sound as smooth. So here we have F, the dominant tonic, the root note. We have C going to B flat, because if we resolve the diminished fifth within the dominant seventh, this will be the leading tone going up to the tonic, and then the seventh degree will resolve down. So it's actually best to actually start with the resolution of the diminished fifth first, and then from there we have a look and see, okay, how do I resolve the dominant to the tonic, and which note should I then multiply in order to make the transition more smoother. Quite tricky when we start looking at harmony and music and four-part harmony in such a way. There's a lot of things to remember, and it's very, very important to remember our rules, to remember our laws in order for us to be able to work more effectively and to work the most musically with our theory. If you like this video, please remember to subscribe to my channel and check out any other video that might benefit you. Thanks for watching.